Hi everyone, this is the third detailed instruction of the Expert Curve Modeling Addon. I've posted a major new update. Thanks to your support, I was able to make one more item from the future development plan of the Addon. It is the creation of several parallel models. We've also added a new pie menu. We will also make a model like this today and use it to explore the new curve smoothing functions. And some other possibilities. Enjoy your viewing pleasure. Let's start with the new parallel model system. Now there's a new models panel here. Let's turn on the Addon activation button. As you can see, together with the activation of the Addon, we're also created collections and ECM object in the list. Also note that all collections of ECM objects will now be placed in one common collection. First of all, now when you are in Vertex, Curve, Segment Modes, and add an object via Add menu, it will be added to the active ECM object. It is highlighted in blue color in your list. As it was in previous versions of the Addon, as if you were adding an edit mode. You can still switch all your modes on the same buttons. But now we have the ability to add another ECM object. The first way you can do this is to go into Model Mode and add via the Add menu. As you can see, now when switching modes, we switch only the modes of this ECM object. Now we have two ECM objects in the list, and there is also another collection set for the new object. You can switch between your ECM objects through the list simply by clicking on the desired one in the list. You can also switch by selecting an ECM object and pressing the Shift-Tab key combination. When you switch from one model to another, your past object goes into model mode. You have a setting that allows you to go straight to the desired mode when switching to another ECM object. You can customize the transition by switching modes in the panel below. Now it goes straight to curve mode when you switch it. There is also a button that opens the settings menu related to ECM objects, and here too you can switch the transition mode. You can also create an empty object ECM by clicking on the plus sign here. It will be created with empty collections. This function is needed in case you delete all collections for some reason, or if you decide to start in a non-standard way and want it to be a separate ECM object. For example, call a curve and extrude it using the extrude curve function. Is now a separate ECM object. Also, if you make mesh to ECM, you can also do it in a new empty ECM object. If you need to delete an ECM object here, is where the cross is located. It also deletes all collections that were associated with that object. As before, you can also control the resolutions on your active object ECM when you switch to it, or you can control on all object ECM through the panel. Another of the new features of the model mode. You can now use the standard move, scale, and rotate keys in model mode, and this will also work for all internal collections, so you don't need to update the origin. Also use a magnet and everything. It is very important to double-click the left mouse button to apply. If your mouse looks like a cross to move, then you need to press the left mouse button again to finalize the application. Also, when using the other scale and rotate functions. See if you moved in curve mode and your origin in model mode is not centered. The button update origin now also works on object ECM. Watch now, I'll show you what to do if you click once with the left mouse button instead of double-clicking. When you switch to another mode, you will see many bindings to the ECM object. In this situation, you will not be able to perform other functions. You will have to go back to model mode and left-click again to have the bindings removed. But you still cannot perform transformations on the model, or when you switch to any mode you disappear object. In this case, disable the Addon activation button and enable it again. And as you can see, all the coordinate origins are at their positions. Let's delete everything. Look, you have only the main collection, but without any collections inside. Create an empty object. This will eliminate possible errors. We have a few more buttons we haven't explored yet. Separate separates the selected segments from the object, creating a separate ECM object. It's separate now. There is also a join object ECM function which, on the contrary, combines different ECM objects into one. For this purpose, select two ECM objects, one of them must be active. Now they are united. See here, there's a refresh button. You might find it useful in some cases. Suppose you accidentally deleted your ECM object, but you still have the object collections. You can restore your object ECM by using the refresh button. It looks at the existing collections and recreates the lists in the object ECM if it is not found. For those who have already done something on older versions and you need to continue working, this button will also help you switch to the new system. Your collections will not have a name. You just need to add one. It should be the same on all collections. Also, if you don't have a main collection, you can create one and move your collections there. Then click Update, a new ECM object will be created. Also remember you must have a space between the collection's prefix and the name. An old ECM object can be deleted. Can also be transferred by importing between Blender files. Copy the segments in one Blender file, paste into another Blender file, and press the plus button. In the Models panel settings, there is a button to switch to the object renaming mode. You can call it whatever you want. The only thing is, do not create names that already exist or overlap with the standard ones. Your collections will also be renamed. Don't forget to turn it off when you're done. Also, by popular demand, a new Pi menu has been added. There's a mode switch. Each mode has its own set of functions as well as common functions for all modes, and I pulled out the select menu and pasted it here. The default hotkey is V, but you can change the preference add-in if you want a different one. We might add something else in the future. If you have any ideas, write in the comments. Curve smoothing functions are better understood in practice, so let's create something. We called the mesh cylinder. Let's analyze it. Yes, it's him telling us about the caps. Let's just remove them. Analyzed it again. Everything's fine. Let's convert it. Use the function to select. Now let's deselect some of the curves. Select handles. Press scale, and then Shift Z to ignore the Z-axis. We'll do the same with the top part. So, as you can see, we have some not-so-good transitions between segments. That's the kind of thing these two features were created for. Let's first look at the smoothing segment function. You still select a curve, but the curve must be between two segments. This function smooths the handles of edge curves that form this transition in the place where the selected curve is located. Let's take a closer look. By default, it takes the average value between the bend of the edge handles. These four curves right here. There are also two other modes. The first leaves handles on some default curves and aligns them to second curves, and the second does the same, but in reverse. And that's what this function gives us. Let's do it again. Looks great. Since there is a very good topology here, this ECM object can also bend very well. I have my other Addon per geoprim which has a function object deform. I usually use it in such situations. It immediately adds a set of 6 modifiers to the object for deformation in all axes. If you have bent the bottom part a little bit too, then align the origin of the object to the bottom part. Only disable the ECM Addon hotkeys via the activation button to be able to move origin. Since we added the deformation in model mode, we can still change its shape using the ECM Addon. And all changes will be modified in real time. I've been told this is very similar to what Curve Loft, my other add-in, can do. So, let's be clear about the difference between add-ons, because there are those who do not quite see it. Let's do some extrude on individual and the z-axis. Let's close these parts with fill curve. Select the outermost segments and make a select point and raise them along the z-axis. Now, let's smooth out the sharp edges. Let's make another extrude with select point and scale to move it to the center. We do the same thing here. Press V and switch the type of these handles to vector to make them aligned. Now, let's close these parts of the curves. We'll close here too. Press the point and zoom button and zoom into the center. I think we've done what I was hoping to do. Now see how the smoothing segment button improves the smoothness of selected locations. Also, see if you have too much mesh on narrow places, it can cause the points to connect. You can reduce the resolution or reduce the weld distance. If you reduce the welding distance, don't make it too small. It may cause the segments to collapse in some places. Let's apply with a duplicate. Grid fill will cover a place like this nicely. I just realized that I forgot to smooth this place out. I think I got a little carried away. Let's see what the remaining function is for, and I'll tell you a little bit about how it works. Now let's look at the smoothing curve. Look, we have sharp corners on the edge, and we want them smooth. This function only works on consecutive curves. It looks at the boundary points between the curves and aligns them by default to the mean value as well. And we can use segment smoothing on this part between two segments. I will also show the use of this function in the car tutorial. Maybe the cube will show it better. And this we have done consistently. The main thing is that the curve smoothing function cannot handle closed chains of curves yet. I will try to implement this and add it in future updates. Also, I added hints to these buttons if you are not using correctly. Let's say this function cannot work on one curve, only on two or more in series. Also, you can't select curves that run as branches. I hope this video has helped you to understand the new features. Comment, and see you in the next video tutorial.